Hey, True Believers, Teen here with the top 10 independent horror comics. Now, over at I Love Comics, I did the top 10 Marvel, the top 10 DC. Those were commissioned by Jim Sorensen, which gave me the idea to do this one over here on Old Man Comics. I hope you enjoy this. Now, if you do want to commission a video, especially for Old Man Comics, just go on over to Ko-Fi. The link is in the description below. Just pick up any old topic, and I'm going to be fixing these. I like the bad comic beatdown and the really that bad, and there are some that are picked a little bit more than others, but all you have to do is go on over and pick out a topic, pick out a subject, and I'll get the video out to you ASAP. Don't forget to click like, share, do the whole 9 yards. Make sure that you ring that notification bell, and with all that aside, let's get this party started. Number 10. I understand that You Are Obsolete has just started. It's only on, issue number 3 now? But, oh my gosh, this was one of the most creepy comic books that I've read in a long time. It's kind of like that episode of Twilight Zone where the young kid is sending people to town and everybody's out into the fields and everybody's afraid to talk about them. Or Village of the Damned, where everybody knows something's wrong with the kids in the town. It's one of those stories, and it really, really works, mostly by building an atmosphere. And it is a very creepy atmosphere. I gave it a good review. I did a review of it in one of the collections I do, and I still stand by it. It is a really cool horror book. Number 9. Lock and Key is one of those books that I discovered late, but I'm very happy that I discovered. It's a horror story that kind of borrows from a whole bunch of different horror genres. You know, you got your Lovecraftians, you got your slasher fest in here as well. And it's really good characters. That's what really is going to get you into this. They really do flesh out the characters as they go from one nightmare to the next, just trying to survive. I was actually surprised because when I looked at the artwork, I've got to admit, it wasn't the most impressive. It looks like one of those slice of life books, except for these people's lives are nothing you want to live. This is horror. This is horrific. This is an 80s movie put to a comic book page, and I've got to tell you, I find nothing wrong with that. Number 8, Baby Teeth by Donny Cates. So, okay, a good writer is somebody who could take something that a lot of people have done and go, wait a second, you know what? I don't think it's been looked at in this particular light before, and then take something that's been done, overdone, and redone and make it new. In this case, we've got Baby Teeth, where Donny Cates is like, yeah, you know, Damien's really cool and all, but what if you were the mother of Damien? You know, what's that like? Let's explore that. And he does, and that's where we get Baby Teeth from. And it's a really good, creepy book. Sometimes it's not as horrific or horror-oriented as other issues, but a lot of times, yeah, it really is. So it's definitely worth a look at. It's definitely worth you checking out. Besides Donny Cates, how many times has he ever failed you? Once with Doctor Strange? Number 7, Infidel. Man, this book caught me from the beginning, man. The first issue I was reading, I was like, whoa, this is some really good imagery. It really was. And then as you read the tale, you find out that it's basically a woman finding her place. She ends up living in this house that had burned down. She may have had something to do with it. An apartment tenement, I mean. And it's now filled with the ghosts of the people who died in the fire. And you also have her needing to deal with the fact that, you know, she's a Muslim woman who's married to a white guy or engaged to a white guy who seems to love her because she's Muslim, and he wants to basically signal his virtue. His mother, however, is a bit bigoted. Then she's got her friends on the other side who are almost militant Muslims. So, you know, she's right here in the middle, just trying to live and just trying to find her place in the world, while everything seems to be wanting to kick her out of it, including the ghosts and the goblins that seemed, not goblins literally, but, you know, the spooks and ghosts and all that kind of stuff that live in her apartment. It is a very good horror comic book because it really pays attention to the character and it lets the horror kind of be a part of the story. Definitely worth checking out. Number 6. 30 Days of Night, excuse me, is a book that you just hear the premise and you go, wow, why have I not thought of that? Why am I not writing this story, right? It's so simple. If there's vampires and they can only go around in the dark, why aren't they hanging out in the places that tend to have days and months worth of nighttime? It's a good and creepy story. The artwork, I know some people thinks that this artwork works for it because it does create an atmosphere, but at the same time, I think it works against it because it doesn't create images. It's more like somebody painted it and then smeared the paint across the thing. But before they could actually print it up. I love the story. Not the biggest fan of the art, but in the end, it's good enough to make it to number 6. Number 5, The Afterlife with Archie. And I know some people have a hard time with this new version of Archie, the more mature, but this, come on, the horror stuff is really cool. But let me tell you, what really stands out here is the art. Francesco Francavilla. Wow. It makes it look good. So Jughead's dog, Hot Dog, is killed by a speeding car, and he begs Sabrina to bring him back, and he does, but of course, he's a zombie, and that's what sets off the story. It is so much fun. This also set off basically the entire horror Archie line, where you've got like Vampironica and The Hunger with Jughead. And my favorite is the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Netflix show aside, which actually that wasn't all that bad. But anyway, this is where it began, and it is really cool. Number 4. If you talk about horror comic books, you talked about the Golden Age, you have to bring up EC. It's just a given. It's the law almost. But if you talk about horror in the 70s and the 60s, you got to bring up Warren Publishing. And in my opinion, as much as I love Vampirella, if you want straight up horror, you got to go to Creepy, man. It's, of course, is a black and white magazine. It's an anthology story, as they always were. But these were some really good books that held nothing back. They weren't held to the same things like Marvel and DC and all that kind of stuff were held to. And they could go just a little bit further. And they did, and it's entertaining, it's fun. These were the books that I wasn't supposed to read when I was a little kid, but I did. And I got to tell you, I'm happier for it. Number 3, The Ice Cream Man. Actually, just get rid of the "the." So ask me, what is one of the best horror comics being produced today? Yeah, The Ice Cream Man. Now, come on. Ask me, what is one of the best independent comic books being published today? And I'm going to tell you, Ice Cream Man. This book had me at the get when we see a little kid buy an ice cream and he goes home to his dead parents. I'm like, yep, I'm in. Whatever creepy crap I'm watching right now, I am so in. It's an anthology book. Sometimes stories take one whole issue. Sometimes, of course, they're like multiple stories and thing. It really harkens back to the days of yore. Whatever that means. But it is so much fun. Absolutely check this out. Number 2, From Hell by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. Now, if you've seen the movie, you've basically seen cliff notes of it. And it's just not the same. This thing is huge. This story is huge with a lot more character, a lot more characters, and it's just written a lot more smartly. I'm telling you, this is something. This is an uncomfortable read, to tell you the truth. It's good. It's really, really good. And I think every comic book collector, especially a horror comic book collector, should read it at least once. But I'm telling you, this will not be a pleasant experience because it is a gothic horror at its finest. It's the slow burn, builds an atmosphere until you just cannot stand it. And you got to turn the page to find out what happens next kind of horror story. And the number 1 independent horror comic book is Tales from the Crypt. It had to be. Come on, right? It has to be Tales from the Crypt. This is the granddaddy of them. This is what you always, everybody, people who don't read comic books, if you say, what's a great horror comic book series, it's Tales from the Crypt. It's pre-code, it's awesome, it's gruesome in some places. Yeah, there's some Golden Age silliness in there as well. And it does kind of get a little tongue-in-cheek, but come on, it's so much fun, so very entertaining, and I think that I had to put it in the #1 spot. Basically, I'm not joking about this, by law. If I were not to choose Tales of the Crypt for at least this list, and it had to be the first one I ever do of top 10 independent horror comics, I would lose my geek card. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. Anyway, gang, there you go. Top 10 independent horror comic books. What do you think? Halloween 2019, I did 3 lists. Go on over to I Love Comics. Check out the other 2, the Marvel, DC. But make sure you're subbed and you hit that notification bell right here. And if you haven't done it yet, click like and share. Let's get word out about the channel. I'm trying to hit 1,000 and 4,000 hours as quickly as possible. Also, if you'd like to commission a video, go on over to Ko-Fi and just pick out a subject, pick out a topic, and I'll get that out to you ASAP. Thank everybody who's already done that. To everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.